Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're doing like a little bit of a different background. I'm not sure how I'm feeling about it right now, but I felt in the mood to switch things up. So here we are. Today we are talking about the books that have made me. The books that were you to cut me open, these would spill out of every wound. These are the books that flow through my veins. They're keeping me alive like the water in my body is keeping me alive. They are me and I am them. First up is Dune by Frank Herbert. Don't be fooled by it only being like a third of the way annotated. I'm currently rereading it. Did I already start that reread when the second movie came out? Yes. A beginning is the time for taking the most delicate care that the balances are correct. This every sister of the Bene Gesserit knows. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then, take care that you first place him in his time, born in the 57th year of the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV. And take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place. And there's so much wisdom in these pages. It is insane. Like, I feel like there's truly not a societal issue that Frank Herbert hasn't thought about when he wrote this book. And it is today so relevant more than ever because this takes place in like the far future. And there are no electronic weapons at all. Like, they fight with swords because humans before them have decided to let computers take over so far that it almost eradicated the entire species. Which, you know, I love it when people predict my current life. Like, I feel like there have been warnings about this from so many authors, especially in the 20th century, and we just keep going, and I love that. Because I love to see humanity ruin itself. And I feel like that's also kind of what this book is about. And it's just, it has so many themes of prophecy and kind of the self-fulfilling prophecy, where if you believe something's going to happen, it is most likely going to happen because you're subconsciously creating the circumstances for it. And that's kind of, if that escalates, that's what this book is about. And it's so good. And if you like the movie even a little bit, I'd high-key recommend. And I definitely also recommend watching the movies first because they just add so much to the reading experience, in my opinion. Next up, we have the man, the myth, the legend, the Master Margarita. First of all, I think this is the most thoroughly I've ever annotated a book, and I stand behind that. This book takes place in 1930 Moscow, and it is about the devil visiting Moscow. That is not a metaphor, he is the actual devil. And he seems to be there exclusively to haunt and to taunt the literary and artistic society of Moscow in that time. And it's about absurdity, and it's about cruelty, state cruelty, and it's about the murder of art in authoritarian systems. And it has such an interesting background story because this book was never actually published, I think, while the author was alive. Yeah, from 1930 onward, his works weren't published in the Soviet Union anymore. He died in 1940, and he spent 12 years writing The Master and Margarita. And honestly, knowing what this book is about, that's a feat. Like, managing to write something like this in 12 years. Insane. I think The Master and Margarita is probably one of my favorite opening chapters of all time. Like, if you just want to get a feel for the book, just read the first chapter because it captures everything perfectly. I'm just now realizing that this is a German copy. Editing me will figure something out about that. Hey y'all, editing me here. At the sunset hour of one warm spring day, two men were to be seen at Patriarch's Ponds. The first of them, aged about 40, dressed in a grayish summer suit, was short, dark-haired, well-fed, and bald. That's all you're getting from me. Next up, we have Emma by Jane Austen. I'm now thinking that I should have grabbed my other edition because I've never actually read this edition. I got it as a gift a couple of years ago and I love it. I love the way it looks, but I just haven't gotten around to rereading Emma yet. This is the story of a young woman called Emma Woodhouse, and she is a meddler. She feels entitled to all and everyone, and she feels entitled to do with their life as she pleases. And Jane Austen herself called Emma a heroine that not many people will like. And I get why, even though I personally really like Emma as a character, and I also found her quite relatable when I first read this book. I think I was like 17, 18 or something, and I don't know, something about her need to be in other people's business just resonated with me. Emma Woodhouse, handsome, clever and rich, with a comfortable home and happy disposition, seemed to unite some of the best blessings of existence, and had lived nearly 21 years in the world with very little to distress or vex her. And that's basically her character. She is a snob, she is a privileged brat, and she's a little bit too proud of it, but she's a very flawed character, and the love story in this novel is just very... She is the character that grows, right? Like, I feel like in Pride and Prejudice, which arguably is Jane Austen's most famous novel, it is very much so Mr. Darcy who overcomes a lot of himself and who really goes through character development beyond just overcoming a prejudice that he has against Elizabeth. Like, he changes for the better through his love for her, and that's kind of what Emma does in this. And I really like that this is a female main character that is going through this, just because I feel like it's not something that even today is super common in romance. Like, usually it's the man that is expected to be better for the woman that he loves, which makes sense because, you know, usually women are the ones reading romance fiction. And like, I don't want to spend all day every day being confronted with the fact that I kind of suck and I should change. Next up, my favorite book of... Did I read this last year or the year before? I didn't write down. I don't know when I read this. It doesn't matter. It is part of me now. This is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf, and I cannot tell you anything else about this book because nothing I could tell you about this book actually, like, it won't give you anything, right? It's about these people and they're staying at like a seaside home and they want to visit the lighthouse. It takes place over the course of like many years, and the way Virginia Woolf just works with time and around time is so impressive, and the way her prose just... It is stream of consciousness, so it flows, period, but it makes your thoughts kind of flow as well. I don't know how else to explain that, but this book makes you reflect on and just drift with your thoughts in so many different directions, and I just think that that's quite impressive to like basically do the opposite of holding my attention, but at the same time I'm still thoroughly enjoying this book and crediting it with allowing me to have such free-flowing thoughts, if that makes sense. I don't know, I think that just technically this is a feast for the eyes. Yes, of course, if it's fine tomorrow, said Mrs. Ramsay, but you'll have to be up with the lark, she added. And it's just a random sentence, and that's kind of... It is so mundane and everyday, and at the same time so sweeping and gripping and all-encompassing, and yet so simple and mundane. And I think I've read quite a bit by Virginia Woolf at this point, and I think this book does it the best. Oh my god. The way I'm obsessed with Romeo and Juliet, alright? I could give you a dramatic reading of like the entire prologue. And I'm going to, because this is my channel and you cannot stop me. two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona where we lay our scene, from ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life, whose misadventured, piteous overthrows do with their death bury their parents' strife. The fearful passage of their death-marked love, and the continuance of their parents' rage, which but their children's end not could remove, is now the 2-hour traffic of our stage. The which, if you with patient ears attend, what here shall miss, our toil shall strive to mend. He did that. I'm... I think my candle went out. I don't have another one. That's fine. You didn't notice anyway. Obsessed, alright? This is, like, this play runs through my veins. This play keeps me up at night. I quote Romeo and Juliet regularly in my real life, and people hate me for it, and I don't care. It is everything. It is capital R romantic. It is gorgeously written. It is all encompassing. It is dramatic in a way that only a play from like the 16th century can be dramatic. It is everything. Romeo and Juliet, to me, it is everything. For never was there a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. I feel like it's the oldest love story there is. And it gets me every time. Never forget that one week in May 2021 when I read two of my all-time favorite books back to back. It was a wild ride, alright? We Are Okay by Nina LaCour. This book. Nothing has ever made me feel sadness like this book. It is about a young woman, girl, whatever, who is going off to college after her grandfather who raised her unexpectedly passed away. And it packs a punch. It's really like, if you've ever experienced grief and or depression, that is all you'll feel in this book. It is not an easy read, but it is so beautiful, and it is so calm in all that pain. Like, it somehow grounds itself in the pain, and it is so well written. This made me feel things that no other book has ever made me feel before or after. And I think that is quite the feat for a novel to do. It also takes place over like Christmas vacation, I think, so that's why it's snowing. Like, it's the perfect winter book. And it's just, there are flashbacks in this, and you just have this veil of grief over all of these happy flashbacks. And I can't tell you how Nina LaCour did that, but she did, and it's so impressive. And I think, again, as just crafting wise, I think this is so good. This is so well written. I don't know if I can ever reread this book because it nearly ended me. But I'm still going to read you the first sentence. Before Hannah left, she asked if I was sure I'd be okay. And like, listen, I know this book is called We Are Okay, but I wasn't okay when I finished it. Actually, little anecdote. I was at my boyfriend's place when I was finishing it, and it was like 2021, so this is still very much COVID times, and he was in a Zoom meeting for like his volunteering work. And I was just in the background of his Zoom meeting crying my eyes out. And like, he had headphones on, and I don't know if his camera was on, but if it was, everyone in that meeting just saw me bawl my eyes out in the background. And I'm not ashamed. I'd do it all over again. And then after reading We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, I read The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. when I tell you that was a wild week. The Handmaid's Tale is a dystopian novel about a woman called Offred who is living in this dystopian new established state called Gilead, Entschuldigung, which is called Gilead. And in this society, women are essentially owned by the state and are sorted into 3 categories. They're the wives, they're the housemaids, I think they're called, something like that, and they're the handmaidens. And due to severe radiation, population has gone down by a lot, and a lot of people have become infertile, and the purpose of these handmaidens is to repopulate the earth. The country, not the earth. It is essentially state-installed rape, and it is quite the short novel, as you can see. And what Margaret Atwood packed into this book, it is actually insane. And the fact that I was so intimidated by this, like I had it on my TBR for like 2 years or something up until that point, just because I was so afraid of how gut-wrenching it would be, and it is, but at the same time it's also so hopeful, and you know, it's very much a narrative of life goes, like the world goes on and history will prove people wrong, and there's hope in this novel, even though it's full of despair. And I think it's so impressive that Margaret Atwood managed to put that into a book this size. I haven't read the sequel, and I don't think I will because I haven't heard many great things. Although the TV show is supposed to be really good, I haven't watched it either. It is also, in my opinion, like if you ever meet a, you know, men don't have it easy either type of man that really only says that because he can't stand you bringing up issues of being a woman and like how women are still systematically oppressed in many ways. If you meet a man like this, like have him read this book, because this book perfectly encapsulates, like, yes, we all suffer under the patriarchy, yes, misogyny is bad for all genders, but it's just worse for women. And like, I don't mean to be rude, like your problems are still valid, but it objectively is worse for women. And this book just captures that so well without really pointing fingers. So good. We slept in what had once been the gymnasium. That's a short first sentence, and I appreciate that, Margaret. Another thing about this novel is that Margaret Atwood didn't write anything into it that didn't actually happen to women at one point or another, in one place or another. There are some articles covering like the main themes and crimes committed against women in this book, and like where and when these have taken place in other places in the world. And it's so tragic and at the same time so powerful, because, you know, so many people don't really believe that there is even such a thing as gender inequality, and then her managing to write one of the most bleak and gut-wrenching dystopias of the 20th century, and doing so by exclusively using crimes that have actually happened. Iconic. It makes me speechless, this book. We're getting near the end of the stack, and this is kind of, I could have managed this better, because this is quite the follow-up to The Handmaid's Tale. Ruby Red by Kerstin Gier. To be quite honest with you, I just think Kerstin Gier runs through my veins. But this is kind of representative. This is the first book. My roommate is throwing around dishes. That's fine. This is the first book I ever remember loving, like as a teen. I wasn't a huge reader as a kid, like neither as a child nor as a teenager. I wasn't one of those kids that were like, I hate reading, it's stupid. Like, I wasn't like that either, but I mostly listened to audio plays or audiobooks, and I didn't really physically read. So I don't have many books that I associate with my childhood, but this one's definitely one. And I think I just started reading it because the hype got to me, because everyone was reading this series in like the 2010s in Germany. And the movies were kind of coming out at the time, I think. And I fell in love. And I'm in love to this day. Like, you'd think that I'd grow out of something like this. No character development whatsoever in the past 10 years. I actually reread this book earlier this year. 5 out of 5 stars. I don't know what else to tell you. I didn't say anything what this book is about. It is about a young girl called Gwendolyn Shepherd. She's not that young, she's 16. And she is part of a family that has quite the secret going on, because in her family there is a time travel gene that is passed from generation to generation. And every few generations, there's a woman in her family that's born with this time travel gene. And everyone thinks that in her generation, it is going to be Gwendolyn's cousin, Charlotte. And Charlotte is trained her whole life by a secret society to prepare her for her first time jump and for the mission to save the world that they are kind of pursuing. And then, surprise, Gwendolyn is actually the gene carrier. And there's a second family, the de Villiers, who where the gene is passed down from man to man. So there's a guy and he's a bad boy, and like, what you gonna do? It is the perfect formula for the perfect YA book. And actually this book, honestly, was so influential in Germany. Like, it started an entire romantasy genre. Like, romantasy has been big in Germany since this book came out. And it's just now getting a lot of recognition in the English-speaking world, at least I feel like. And I'm like, we had Kerstin Gier do that for us like a decade ago. I love the series so much. I don't know what else to tell you. Again, German first chapter. Once she let herself fall onto her knees and started crying, he was looking around to all sides. And there's like the prologue and the epilogue are always about 2 other characters, and I love them so dearly. And like, I know it's been over a decade, but all I've ever wanted was a novel about them. So Kerstin, if you're watching this, like, I'm still waiting, and I'd still be willing to read and purchase that book multiple times if you need me to. Okay. This stack is losing structural integrity with every book that I put on it. Yeah, it's fine. And we are down to the last book. Are you ready? The Perks of Being a Wallflower by Stephen Chbosky. I read this book in 2020 when I had just gotten back into reading, and it's a story about a young boy called Charlie, and this book is written in letters that Charlie addresses to the reader. So he writes, "Dear friend, I'm writing to you because she said you listen and understand and didn't try to sleep with that person at that party, even though you could have." And it's just him feeling every single teenager emoji. It's just Charlie feeling every teen emotion and feeling all of these things for the first time and trying to articulate them and keeping up with his peers and like trying to navigate life as a young person and finding friends and falling in love. And it also has quite a lot of tragedy woven in, but not in a life-shattering way, like not in the way that We Are Okay has tragedy woven in. It's more subtle. It's just always there, and they all just kind of live with it. And it's just such a good book in my opinion. And I think about it at least once a week, still to this day. The movie's also really good, high-key recommend, and I've wanted to reread it ever since I've first read it. Like, I literally finished it in 2020 and was like, oh my god, I want to reread it. But I kind of wanted to wait so I'd forget some of it, so I kind of get to feel all of these feelings again for the first time. But one day I'll return to this book and it might almost destroy me. And I can't wait. And that concludes all of the books I am. If you want to know me as a person, if you read this stack of books, you know everything you need to know. this is all there is to me. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what your favorite books are. Like, if I were to cut you open, which books would be spilling out? Write that in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you feel so inclined. Don't forget to like. And I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.